Hi there, and welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son sit down and we talk about semi-depressing things in sci-fi fantasy. I'm the son in that equation, Zach.
And I'm the puzzled dad going, that's not how this usually goes, is it? But
it does today.
So I'm the father, Jim. Thanks for being with us. I hope you're still okay with that after this emotionally wrenching episode is over.
Which, to disclaim, the episode itself will not be that emotionally wrenching. However,
the content we're covering, kind of is, as we talk about the top 10 gut punch moments from science fiction fantasy. More about that in a moment. Zach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. We just came off recording a Wheel of Time episode. Those are always fun.
Oh, such a good episode.
And
if you've heard it already, we hope you agree. It was the one right before this one.
It was very epic and very fun. But now we're heading into this episode, which I have prepared for more than I do some episodes.
Truth.
And so I'm excited. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Still having a good time. It's a weekend. It's with my son. He's still in the same place with me. That's not for much longer. About a month from now, he'll be moving to Texas.
Technically speaking, this next week, neither of us will be here.
No, because he's going up to a wedding in Alaska, and I'm going out to a conference out on the Oregon coast. But nevertheless, it's nice to be together right now. One of the reasons we're doing this podcast is it gives us a reason to touch base, to stay connected. And
which
even
is
when
very fancy way of saying I'm bad at communicating.
Well, that's true.
And so this is how we do better.
But he got that from me. I was horrible with communicating with my parents, too.
Sorry, Grandma.
But as he moves to Texas soon, we'll still have regular times that we're getting together because this podcast will go on strong. We have to now because we have friggin' thousands of people listening to our podcast.
And you guys get to be a part of that. Don't you feel special?
They should. We feel special because they are listening.
We do.
I'm just going to say they are special.
That's true. It's very true.
So we are recording this midweek, as we often do, right after doing a regular Wheel of Time content episode, which means we've already been drinking something.
So both of us are not drinking the same thing.
No, we've moved on to something else.
Something lighter.
Yes. So we don't start stumbling while we talk.
Hey, let's be real. I do that when I'm sober.
What are you drinking, Zach?
I'm doing a Truly Fruit Punch hard seltzer. Mom, I think, actually picked these up. I had some of the Truly lemonades around, but she picked some of these up the other day, and they're tasty.
And I have red wine in front of me. I opened up a Syrah from Maryhill Winery here in Washington State. Very tasty. I mentioned it once before. We're wine club members with Maryhill. They have great wines. Their headquarters is out in the Columbia River Gorge. Beautiful scenic area. They also have an outpost here in Vancouver where we live. So it's easy to get their wine. And since I signed up, I get a case 3 times a year. And I'll admit I buy more than that. So good wine. Enjoying a nice Syrah today.
So, if you are sitting around listening to this, sipping something, please hop on over to our Discord and share in our drink recipes channel what it is you're drinking. We'd love to hear.
Absolutely. So, we have gathered here today.
It's a wedding again. Oh no. These
Get used
never
to
end
it.
well.
You're heading to one of those. But not his. Not his wedding.
No, not for a while.
No rush. This special midweek episode is talking about those top 10 gut punch moments from science fiction fantasy. Now, we want to clarify.
There's some disclaimers here.
We're going to be covering things that we personally have read or watched from science fiction and fantasy that hit us hard in the feels.
We also are very bad at numbers and did not come up with 10.
Well, we will by the end. So we're going to have a top 10 in the end, but I've compiled my personal list. Zach has compiled his personal list. We're going to share what we have. We'll talk about these things. There will be spoilers in what we share here. So, warning right now, look at the show notes. I will list every book or series we are drawing things from here. And every one of these things are big, hard spoilers.
Like, really big.
Yeah, that's why they're emotional. So look at the show notes now. Seriously, look. And if you see something you're not familiar with, you haven't read it, and you think you might sometime,
probably don't listen to this episode until after you've read it.
Right, go watch it now. Go read it now. get familiar, then come back and you'll know if you agree with us or not. If you continue to listen anyways, you've been warned.
Now, I'd also like to throw out a little explanation before any of my picks, and that's I attempted to, for the most part, avoid repeating in a series. I do have one repeat in a series, but there are some moments where some series, for example, just have so many moments that I could draw from that are really gut-punchy. It's just, that's how the series is. And I tried to stick down to what hit me the most.
You know, and some series are broad enough to have multiple easily. I mean, you may have a trilogy. Then you've got Wheel of Time with 15 books. I have 2 from Wheel of Time as an example.
That is my one series that I did grab 2.
See, we both have 2 from Wheel of Time. We may have the same 2. We'll find out because we have not compared notes ahead of time.
At all.
And we're going to find out, how does this roll? It'll be freaky if like half of mine are his as well.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, we'll see.
I feel pretty good about that.
Now, again, in preparing these, we stuck to what we know. I've looked out on that World Wide Web thing. There are lots of great gut punch moments where you emotionally are just hit so hard in books and series that we haven't read.
And there are a lot of great moments and things even that we have that might hit us differently for one reason or another.
It's very subjective.
It might be a minor thing that hit me very hard, or it might be something really big that meh.
But we want to put it out there to you that if you have ones that you think are way bigger than some of the ones we end up talking about, feel free to share them. Jump on our Discord server. Tell us all about it. Tweet us. We're very active on Twitter.
Just make a note if you jump on our Discord to do it. At me, not my dad, because I'm more okay with spoilers than he is.
I'm okay with this much, probably. Because if they're on our Discord, all is forgiven. We love them for being there anyways.
It's for content.
Yeah. All right. How we're going to do this then is we're going to take time to share from the bottom. We've ranked for our personal preferences the strongest gut punch and the least, and kind of the spectrum between.
It's very arbitrary.
So Zach has 9 that he has come up with to put forward here today. I have 11. And so I'll be sharing just a little more than him at first, and then we'll be back and forth.
If you come up with an average, we did get 10 gut punch moments each.
That is true. But in the end, then, we'll wraggle and waggle and
probably
I'm making up words here.
We'll probably mostly leave it in these were our loose top 5 each, and which one is worse or
it might be my top 8 and his top 2 because mine are so much better.
No, that's not how we're...
It could be. It could be.
No.
We'll see.
What I think partially will largely leave the decision of which ones are really the most that we mention to the listener.
I could imagine me putting together a Twitter poll of our top 4.
And they get to decide
what they think is the biggest gut punch of those 4.
Top 2 each, or we decide on what that top 4 is?
No, we'll have our cumulative
He
that
really
we've worked
thinks
out.
his top 4 will be better than any of mine.
No, I'm saying we're going to come up with our collective top 10, and of that top 10, those 4, which will probably be 3 of mine and 1 of yours, sure, but...
Only because my number 1, I don't think you've read.
Ditto. All right, for me, I'm going to start with number 11, and then I'm going to share number 10. And then Zach will start with his number 9. And
yes.
This is how we're starting. So
it's a whole thing.
Now, I have to admit, 2 of the ones on my list aren't really strongly science fiction fantasy. But they were such gut punch moments, I had to bring them up anyways.
I think that's fine.
And number 11 is one of those. And it is one Zach is familiar with. For me, number 11 is from Flowers for Algernon.
Which, okay... It's not sci-fi fantasy.
It's science fiction to a degree.
I will say it's false enough in both its pretense and its science that I'll give you science fiction.
I'm going to go in here.
Like,
you could even say it's kind of a fantasy then.
I'm sorry. The science is bullshit. But it's a great story.
So to understand the gut punch moment here, in Flowers for Algernon, you have a character named Charlie. And Charlie is someone who was born with diminished mental capacity. So, however you rate those things, he does not process like typical people do. And so he doesn't realize really that there's that much different between himself and others because he doesn't have the mental capacity to truly understand that. He's a fairly happy-go-lucky guy. But he ends up connected with a scientific experiment to try to increase his intelligence. And it works.
Too well.
And you read, and this whole thing is written in a diary format. He's journaling his experiences as it goes along, and you get to see him, and the author is brilliant with this, as he grows in his awareness of the world around him and his ability to engage with others, and eventually to the point where he enters the stratosphere of genius levels and can no longer engage with others again because he's become too above everybody, and then it starts to reverse. And this was totally unforeseen.
Well,
other than there's a mouse, Algernon, experimented on at the same time. Well, first, actually, and it was because it worked on the mouse that they said, let's try it on a person. And unfortunately, the mouse starts to deteriorate before Charlie does. But you see the writing on the wall at that point. And Charlie, as a brilliant genius, is himself trying to figure out how to stop this, how to reverse it, and realizes he can't. There's nothing that can be done. And late in the book, Algernon dies. And this is the gut punch moment when you realize that there's nothing that can be done. All that was done, all that Charlie has experienced is being completely stripped away. And in the end, he's going to be worse than he was because he'll be gone.
Mm-hmm.
He had been happy, even though he was mentally not at the level of a typical person.
And he was getting treated terribly.
He was getting treated terribly, but he didn't know it. He didn't realize it. He was happy. That's the whole point. He didn't realize he shouldn't have been happy. He was happy. And now it's all gone.
Anyways, that's your
Gut
11.
punch, man.
That's your 11.
That's my 11. It
What's
goes
your
up
10?
from there.
What's your 10?
All right, number 10. Ender's Game. Now, this is definite sci-fi.
This might be one of mine.
In Ender's Game, you've got Ender, who has... I'm not going to spoil the whole series, but he's been trained to fight battles via computer with an alien race that's been threatening mankind. And Ender has excelled. And he's working with another group of kids like him who he's become the leader. He's risen to the leader of them, but he coordinates all. And battle after battle, successful, and finally the final battle, and they crush the enemy. Basically, genocide. Success, big celebration, and then it's revealed this wasn't a game. And he has wiped out an alien race.
Yeah, that hit me harder than it did my dad because that's higher up on my list, but it is one of mine.
That's a gut punch, man. And just to see how it tears Ender apart then. While everyone around him is celebrating at the success of the program, that's harsh. Yeah. All right, so that was my number 10. Let's start with your first one. Your number 9 is?
My number 9 is something that I thought was rather gut punchy, but it's more gut punch for the character than it was for me. I kind of enjoyed seeing it, but it is a gut punch at least for the character. And that's something I just read in Sanderson's Warbreaker. Denth and Crew's betrayal. When you learn that this happy-go-lucky, funny mercenary guy who you grow to like, the character likes, and it's really like a very attractive character, is a horrible person.
Horrible.
And like you walk back in and find, oh, that person was murdered because they assumed you ran away and that you knew you'd figured them out, when in actuality you were kidnapped.
And you cared about the person who was murdered.
Oh yeah.
That was your close friend.
And then even as time goes on, you still find yourself wanting to believe that they're a good person. There's some misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. There's something else there.
Nope.
Just because that person is so charismatic and good, nope.
The signs were there.
Oh,
in
yeah.
The story, but yeah.
And so it
don't
didn't
see 'em.
hit me hard, but the way it hit Vivenna, huge gut punch.
There you go. Good one. All right. Now I'm going to share 2 more.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll get to the point where we're back and forth. My number 9, the death of Glenn in The Walking Dead. Both in the comics and how they played it out on the TV.
Differently,
series.
but both.
But the result's the same. Where Glenn got his skull bashed in horribly by Lucille. That's the name of the bat that does the work. It's like you care about Glenn as a character. He is one of the most kind, compassionate, understanding people. He has formed a deep relationship with one of the other characters.
Show speaking wise, he was one of my top 2.
Absolutely. And then he is just suddenly and meaninglessly taken away in a crushing was the wrong word
A
to
skull
use
crushing?
there.
It's a skull crushing moment.
It hurt in the feels, man. It was bad when that happened. I know people who read the comics, and when that happened, that was it. They didn't touch the rest of the comics. They're like, that hurts too much. You went too far. I'm not reading anymore. Which might not have been a bad call, actually, because the thing starts to decline eventually. But, Glenn. Sorry, Glenn. That was my number 9.
And your number 8?
Number 8. The death of Fred Weasley in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
Okay.
It kind of comes out of nowhere.
I'm gonna be honest, this one's gonna sound really harsh. I didn't care.
Oh, no.
Like, he's a very beloved thing, and it's a very sad moment, but, like, I never cared about Fred.
See, Fred and George were the ones that everybody loved. They were always happy. They loved life. They create their joke shop. They drop out of Hogwarts because, screw you, we're going to do our own thing. We're going to be us. They were what everybody really wants to be. And yet, here they are in the Deathly Hallows, like everyone else on the good side, jumping in, doing their part to fight the evil, to fight all that's happening around Voldemort and his Death Eaters and stuff. And just out of the blue, he's killed. What the heck? What? You can't kill one of the pair? And that was, that's not kind. That's wrong.
I'll agree.
They're supposed to live happily ever after. I didn't care for that.
Mean, but that one didn't hit me.
All right.
Am I up to my number 7?
I think you're up to your
number 8. My numbering is weird. My number 8. I'm probably going to mess that up again because at one point I have one technically listed as my 2.5 and then everything else is shifted back from there.
Okay.
So I'm just off. My number 8 is, again, a Sanderson poll. But it's not for my credit that I'm pulling.
I'm glad
this
to
one.
hear that. I have no Sanderson in here because he doesn't hit those levels for me.
It's not for me that I put this in here. It's for what Rachel's reaction was when she read it.
Okay, for the girlfriend.
In that she texts
Hi,
me
Rachel.
like in all caps going, "What the hell?" when this happens.
Is it Kelsier?
It's Kelsier's death.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way about Kelsier.
How he dies. Not just the fact that he dies,
It's like,
but that the Lord Ruler comes up and just one hit, bam.
It's fair. It's fair.
And this main character, this main driving force of the story, gone in a moment.
I thought about putting it on my list, so that has a fair chance of making the top 10.
It's a fair one, I think, to include. Mm-hmm. Again, I was like, okay, but I think it's gut punchy.
But sorry, I feel more about Fred Weasley. Sorry, Weasley. All right, back to me. Number 8. This one's a slam dunk. The Red Wedding from A Song of Ice and Fire. Technically from the Storm of Swords.
I'm glad that you put this one so low because I agree, but it's partially like so much so or almost played out.
And the thing with the Red Wedding is, of course, familiar with the series, they did this really well on the TV show, actually.
Yes.
You know, Robb Stark and his wife and Catelyn Stark and all the people of the good side are there celebrating there at the Twins. All is good with the phrase, and then suddenly, oops, the sad music starts playing, the Rains of Castamere, and here come the crossbows, and here come the swords, and
the slitting of throats.
It all gets pulled out from under them, and it's so harsh, and it's so cold, and it's so wrong. And you're like, but it's Game of Thrones. These things happen. So that's why it's only number 8.
Yeah, I considered putting this in my list, but didn't. Largely because I feel like everyone experienced this as a big gut punch moment. It deserves a spot on the top 10, but I didn't personally have too big of a thing when the show adaptation at least came around because the book had been there.
I've watched this episode a few times.
And it was kind of like, it was well done. But I don't know. It was well done in a way that I was like, that is shocking. Not it hits me in the feels, you know?
Something I liked about the books better than the show is that Catelyn Stark doesn't die here. and you end up with Lady Stoneheart.
I think that's very fun.
I'm sad that was cut. Again, TV adaptations. They chose to
gotta
leave that
change
out,
things.
but I liked that part of, and it is what it is.
So for my number 7, I'm jumping to a Harry Potter one now.
Oh no, don't take mine.
And this is a personal one for me.
Okay.
Because when you were reading this to us, it happens at the end of a book.
Yep.
And
I'm worried now.
the next book was not out yet.
Okay.
It's Dumbledore's death.
He didn't take mine. I didn't put that in there.
Because for me, I had a very clear
It's a gut punch
description
moment.
of like he gets killed, thrown out the window, falls down through the ground, and then the book's over.
Through the ground?
No, to the ground, but like
You did say through.
yes, but like my brain picture as a child was seeing this as like his body goes flying into the horizon and eventually falls down.
Okay.
Not accurate, but still.
Yeah.
And it was something that
moving.
hit me personally. It's not necessarily the biggest moment, but it is a big mentor character throughout the series, meant to be thought of as like nearly unbeatable, and yet
How does he die?
just dies
What?
like that. And
Yeah.
we've still got a whole nother book.
Right. So I hope you're feeling these with us, people. At the same time, I partly hope you aren't, because, man, emotional gut wrench after gut wrench. But that's where we are in this episode.
Don't
So we
worry,
got
we'll
for ya.
eventually come out with our like top 20 light and fluffy or something.
We may have to, because this is only getting worse from here. Okay? We're up to our top 6
You mean it's
now.
getting better
Yeah.
by getting worse?
For my number 6, I'm jumping to Wheel of Time.
Okay.
I mentioned I have 2, so this is my first of Wheel of Time. And this one may not be in a lot of people's, but this was a gut-wrench moment for me. And a lot of gut-wrench moments involve somebody dying. We've seen that already. This one does not, but it does. It's Varen.
Okay.
In the Gathering Storm, when Varen reveals she's Black Aja and all that she's done her whole life, it's this big twist. And then, of course, Varen dies. That's the whole point. She's poisoned herself, so she can now share that she's secretly been working for the bad side, so she could gather intelligence for the good side, sorta, and then she dies. And I'm like, no, I like Varen.
Yeah.
So it pulled out from under us that Varen was a good person. Nope, she's not. She's a bad person. But she's not, because she's trying to help the good.
But either way,
But
she's
in order
dead.
to help the good, she has to die. It's like, So the reveal itself was a shock. But then that we lose her too, to me, that was a gut punch.
Whereas to me, it was more a fun moment of triumph.
Fun moment. Varen dies. You got it on record, people. Zach found that a fun
Well,
moment.
yeah, because she did something badass, okay?
Well, she allows others to do something really cool with her sacrifice.
No, she did something badass. And then others carry that forward into something cool.
She also killed Tomas at this point.
No.
In essence.
He willingly also committed himself to be dying.
If she hadn't said this is the time, he'd still be alive.
But he went and lived it out with his family at the end. So we're good. Anyway,
What is your number 6?
my number 6, you already said.
Which one was that?
This is my Ender's Game genocidal one.
So you had that much higher.
I had it here partially because I have read fewer things. I also, I think, took fewer things from more
I do have
series.
30 years ahead of you, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And
It's a shame I have not read that much more than
I
you.
think genocide hits me a little bit harder than it hit you. Personally. Well,
Now I feel bad.
let's go a step-
I feel dirty.
let's go a step further here. Two-sided. 1, I am younger. I was younger when I read it. And 2, I'm much more in the realm of being a gamer, playing games consistently. And so the experience was a little bit more personal to me.
You should be sure eventually and add it to your TBR to read
To finish
book
that
2.
series? Oh, I read book 2, Speaker for the Dead.
Okay.
I got
Man,
halfway through
that's whoa.
Xenophobia. That's the third one. Xenophile?
I don't remember. I think it's Xenophobia.
Xeno-
Might be Xenophile. I've read all 4, but I don't remember. The last 3 and 4,
Yeah.
they're not so good. 1 and
3
2, bam.
3 is Xeno something. I don't remember what because I got a quarter, maybe a third of the way through and just I lost interest. But I did read the first 2.
That's really all you need to read. You heard it from Fantasy for the Ages right here.
And if you stop after the first one, you really don't need the second. It's just
But the second is very different from the first.
It's also
but
a
it's
good,
a
fun
worthwhile
story,
read.
though.
I remember reading it going, what the heck is, what is this? But as I got to the end, I was like, wow, that was a good story. All right, number 5. Okay, we're hitting the hard ones now for me.
Okay.
Ugh, wow. So number 5 is one I don't believe you've read, because it comes from the Dragon Riders of Pern.
Well, I have read some of that.
I don't
probably
think you
won't
read
probably won't remember this. Even
Moreta,
though I have.
Dragonlady of Pern.
The biggest problem is I don't remember much of anything from the Dragon Riders.
Moreta, Dragonlady of Pern, is partway through the series, and about halfway. And what's going on here at this point is the world is suffering from a plague, and basically all humankind is going to be wiped out, and they're struggling to find a cure. And near the end of the book, they find a cure.
Mm-hmm.
So now they need to get the cure out all across the continent where all the different communities are as fast as possible. And dragon riders in the world of Pern, they have the ability to jump between. And what that means is they literally leave this dimension, they jump into another dimension that has no time, no space, nothing. It's a nothingness. And from that can jump back to our world in a totally different place.
Mm-hmm.
Almost instantaneous travel. The dragons that they use are the ones that can do this. And the dragon riders have a psychic connection with their dragon. But there's so much more to the series I don't want to spoil as I explain this.
Yeah, explain this in the least spoilerly way.
What's important is that the dragons psychically connected to the people, to the riders, will do what the rider tells them to do. So whenever they jump between, they need to clearly have in their head the vision of where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Moreta and other dragon riders are jumping between and going places, delivering the serum that's been created. And they're going on and on for hours and hours with this, because it's a vast continent, lots of holds. Moreta gets exhausted, and she jumps one time too many, where the last jump she makes, a little too tired, she doesn't have in her mind a clear destination. They jump between, and they don't come back. She was the driving force behind all of this. The world is saved because she had a vision. We can create this. We can do this. There is a way to save humanity. And she did not have to make that last jump. Somebody else could have done it. Someone who wasn't as tired. She's gone. Just like that. All the dragons sense a dragon and rider have been lost. And they start keening. They're crying. And it's like, oh, what? Gut punch, man. I mean, very sad.
To me, reading that, I would have then, for the rest of the series, be looking for, could they randomly come back? Never happens.
Never happens. It's a done thing. I'm almost tearing up talking about it. That was a sad, sad moment.
What number am I on?
Number 5.
Okay. My number 5, I finally hit a Wheel of Time one.
Hopefully it's not mine. I got
Maybe
one
it
more.
is. Probably not. It is Memory of Light.
Uh-oh.
Nearish the end, actually.
Uh-oh.
Ruark's death.
Whew. Now that's a good one, though. I like this
And the
one.
big thing being Ruark, who, great guy, great warrior, got hit with a blast of compulsion and is now fighting for the dark.
And fighting badass.
And we
for the dark.
basically see my mental picture, Ruark jumping over the rocks, coming, killing people left and right. He's coming after Aviendha, and she is forced to blast him with fire and kill him.
So hard, man.
She has
did
no
not
choice
deserve to
but
go
to do
out
it.
like that.
And it's partially what then leads to her being so upset with and dealing with the situation, which is good. But it was a moment where it's like, you've been a character that we have stuck with and one of our go-to Aiel friends that we like in this group, at least.
So steady, so solid.
And this is your end. It hurt.
Good one. Bad one, but good one.
Your turn.
Number 4, I Return to Wheel of Time. Same book.
Okay.
Guinevere's death in A Memory of Light, man. She goes out in a blaze of glory, but she's supposed to survive. No, what? No. That's kind of how I felt when Guinevere goes nuclear.
It's a weird thing because I read it and it felt right.
When I said that stuff, I'm not sure everybody's going to understand, but if they don't care about spoilers of Wheel of Time, they understand. So I don't think I
Exactly.
need to say more.
But no, it
Felt
felt
right to you.
It was.
Man, no.
There was a bit of poeticness in it that I enjoyed.
Stupid Gawain.
And I think a lot of what she was serving in the story and doing, she achieved and accomplished. And it's like, yeah, she could go on and do more, but she also
Should have gone on and done more.
She also set up the world
You
where...
know how young she was? I mean, come on.
Yeah, but she also set up the world
She wasn't even 20 yet.
It could go on and do more.
Man, what's wrong?
And I think she served her purpose and gets to go
Served her purpose and die.
She gets to go out a hero instead of living to become the villain.
She would not have bite your tongue.
No, I mean it in the sense that she was a fantastic Amerlin for her time and what was needed. But in a complete time of peace, she may or may not have been. And we don't know.
All she went through,
and that's the
all
thing.
she sacrificed,
don't need to know.
all she endured. The forcing of the Shan-Chan, the working through the Aiel, being, an apprentice there. I mean, everything that she endured.
All of it shaped her for what she needed to do.
To be then put back as a novice in the White Tower again. I mean, all these things. She never got a point to just enjoy being Egwene Alvear, Amerlin Seat.
That never was going to be Egwene.
Could have been.
Do you know her character at all? Egwene is not the type to rest on her laurels.
Not rest.
And relax.
Not rest.
She would not have rested, relaxed, enjoyed.
She could have had a true satisfaction of, I'm doing good.
I think she did.
Making a difference on the world.
I think that last moment, healing the pattern, I think she did.
Sure.
Reunifying the tower, rooting out the black, I think she did.
Too short. She deserved more. That's all I'm saying. All right, that's my 4. What's your 4?
My number 4. Ooh, you haven't said this one. This is nice. It's the Scouring of the Shire.
I don't have that at all. And that didn't hit me in the feels the same way.
It's Tolkien it's kind of the initial original, you think you've won and then the rug gets pulled out again. And it was just a little thing of like, there is so much wonderful, nice, peaceful place that we remember. We want to be able to go home and relax afterwards. But even that's not safe. And so it was a nice little twist to a great epic saga that kind of stunk that it wasn't in the movies. Because...
Well, the movies were long enough as they were.
Yes. But it allowed for it to not be a perfect happy ending immediately.
Okay.
That was what you were looking for and kind of expecting when first reading it. And so I would say it's less that it like really is a deep in the feels, but I give it this place as a respect for an early twist gut punch.
All right. That's fair. I like it. I'm not sure it'll make our top 10, but I like it.
Ouch. I put it up at like 4 and it's not top 10.
Yeah, you're not always right.
You see, you're just biased.
Perhaps. My number 3, which I'm so glad you didn't pick earlier, I go to Harry Potter finally. Or back, I should say, because I had Fred Weasley much farther down. Sirius Black's death in
fair.
Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Harry finally has a father figure, in essence, his godfather, Sirius Black. And in that battle that he gets taken out by Bellatrix Lestrange right there at the end. And I'm like, oh, no! That just felt sad. Harry finally has someone.
Harry's not allowed to be happy.
Gets him taken away. No, that was just wrong. Take it back. J.K. Rowling, you're a bad person.
No, I think Harry's not allowed to be happy until he gets rid of the Horcrux part.
So that's my number 3, Sirius Black biting the dust. Just wrong. He'd suffered enough and then bam.
So my number 3 now, I get to jump back to Wheel of Time.
Okay.
To something, again, I'm happy you didn't take. Because it hit hard. And I'm talking about Hopper's death.
Hopper!
Not his first one.
The real
permadeath.
death. The permanent death, which is pretty harsh.
But it's when you put all of the pieces together. When you put, he died for Pern so early on, and then serves as his mentor even through death. And then still again through this whole battle, and partially as a Perrin's jumping too far, too fast. He's not ready for this, and Hopper knows this. And then he takes the arrow for him anyway.
The creator can change it.
Perrin almost dies.
The creator must change it.
Come
on, Bella.
And doesn't because of Hopper. But Hopper does. And it hits hard, especially because I have a soft spot for animals dying.
A lot of people do. All right, we're to our top 2 now.
Yes.
All right, my number 2. It's from a movie.
Oh, we're good. Neither of mine.
And this is
are gonna be
one
what you
where
include.
literally I remember tearing up. I don't cry. I don't cry easy. I don't cry practically ever, but I teared up. So, you know, where the eyes get wet, but no tears come out? Okay. That's what men do. Tear up.
Okay.
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
God!
Spock sacrifices himself in the radiation chamber.
It didn't hit you so much when they did it the other way around in the new version?
Nah, not the same. Not the same. And that whole interchange between Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner, Spock and Kirk. Man. And then he just dies.
Maybe this is just me showing my age.
But-
that wouldn't be on my list.
But then, where you really get hit in the feels is the funeral. Where they have their memorial service and they shoot his body out in a photon torpedo that goes down to the Genesis planet. And when Kirk... Okay, William Shatner is a bit of a dipstick, but as an actor, there are things he does that gets you. And when he, in character, almost loses it, everyone in the audience loses it. It's like, oh, that's hard, man. That hits.
See-
when Spock was the most human, oh,
I'm probably sitting here going, I watched this, yes, as a kid, but it's been out, and quality of stuff and just like the film itself.
the Trekkies will be sending
And
you hate
my own
mail.
thing.
By the way,
I love Star Trek. Don't get me wrong.
oh, your words betray you.
I don't agree with you in terms of this being a huge gut punch at all.
And of course, when I watched it in theater, you didn't know.
I mean-
that was the end of Spock.
Exactly, and that's part of it. I
Now,
knew.
we were all
more.
immediately theorizing that's not the end of Spock. He'll be back.
But I even also...
But you didn't really know.
It was really well done, and the style, but I almost even go, it kind of feels overacted now.
I may not be feeding him tonight, just so y'all know.
It's okay, I'll figure it out.
Hit the road, Zach. Don't you come back no more, no
I'm
more,
not hitting
no
the road,
more,
I'm
no
hitting
more.
the air.
All right, what's your number 2?
So my number 2 exists in books. It's my number 2 for its adaptation reasons.
Okay.
It's A Song of Ice and Fire,
Yeah.
or in this case, Game of Thrones. And it's Jon Snow's death. The For the Watch,
Yep.
stabbing through the heart.
Yep.
And what got me was all it, various things.
And then the young boy.
Exactly. And it's less so that it was like a horribly like it is a shocking gut punch moment, but A Song of Ice and Fire has a ton of those. To me, it was more in the show a beautifully done singular moment that I really enjoyed Kit Harington's acting through.
Oh,
it.
you did a good job.
And so it I think was valid to put up.
All right. It didn't hit me in the feels the same way. I was just like, cool, because I'd read it and I knew it was coming.
I think the other thing is that in book terms, we don't really have anything else. We don't have where does it go from there.
Yeah, that's where the books end. Thanks, Martin.
And so when the show that happened, we were then left to, okay, we have to figure
The
out
whole
where does this
season.
go from here.
Is he going to come back?
Is he going to?
Is that
Is he
the
not?
end? What's
All
not?
this.
We all knew he was coming back.
But it was a moment of time where we got to actually, as book readers, get shock and surprise for the show of uncertainty. We don't know what they're going to do next.
Disappointingly, it was all downhill from there. Except that he
Season-wise,
came
kinda.
back. Yeah.
There are good episodes.
Some.
Battle
but
of the Bastards is great.
Let's not talk about season 8.
I wasn't. Anyway,
Now we're down to our final choices.
The Wire, if you will.
The what?
The Wire, if you will. We're down to The Wire.
Down to the wire. All right, works for me. Number 1. Okay, for me, on my notes, I have number 1 and I have then 5 exclamation marks.
Because you think it's very number 1?
This, for me personally,
That's the same mine as me personally.
above and beyond anything else I've listed here. Such a gut punch. And there's a story here. So I'm going to refer to something from the story Where the Red Fern Grows.
I've read it on your recommendation.
This is not a fantasy novel.
Not even a little.
This is not a science fiction novel.
Not even a little.
This is a fiction novel, and if you like fiction, read this. I don't care what kind of fiction you like or don't like, read this.
You might not love it, but you'll enjoy it.
Read it. Okay, I was first assigned this book as a 5th grader to read, and I did not want to read it because it wasn't fantasy. It wasn't sci-fi. That's what I like to read. I was an avid reader. It's like, what? Stupid book. I don't want to read this. But of course, it was assigned. There was homework. I read it anyways.
It had dogs.
It did. And it's set in the Ozarks, and it's rural, and I was like, what? I was living in Chicago. I had no context. I didn't care. Ugh. There's 2 gut punch moments in this book, but I'm referencing the last one.
I'm assuming you're referencing largely the dogs dying.
Yes. So
Saving
there's
the
a
kid's
boy
life.
with his 2 hunting dogs, and they end up sacrificing themselves to save him. I'm not going to go into all the details because you can read the book and you will thank me for not blowing all the details. But they end up dying. One dies, and then the other dies for the loss of the first one, basically. And just the way it's done is gut-wrenching.
And then we finally get validation for the title of the book.
We do. But, again, I don't cry, but there were tears in the eyeballs.
You were
Okay?
in like 5th grade. It's fine. You can cry.
There were tears in
You
the
can
eyeballs.
also cry as an adult.
I just don't cry. It's just how it is, sorry.
Okay.
But when I feel wetness in the eyes, that's like validation. This was awesome. Okay, so where the red fern grows when the 2 dogs die. Oh my goodness. And that's my number 1 because it kicks the butt out of everything else. I mean, Spock is close, but no, it's all there in the feels.
So my awareness of toxic masculinity allows me to say, I do cry. It's okay. It's a valid expression of emotion.
Since you point that out, I will go ahead and say the fact that I don't cry is not healthy. I recognize that. I'm glad I raised you better.
I don't cry all the time necessarily.
No, he doesn't bawl like a baby. He's fine.
And I actually don't usually in like
He's healthy.
human to human interactions, but certain media and stuff can inspire it in me. And this one book I'm going to mention,
You cried?
I sobbed.
Ooh, I want to hear.
I sobbed publicly.
Since you said I didn't read it,
I sobbed publicly.
I got to hear what this book is.
It's what I considered to be my favorite book, actually. It was a recommendation from a friend, Trezell.
Yeah.
And
Who should be listening to this podcast. I told you need to tell
I
him.
need to hit him up.
Make sure he knows we're doing this.
And it does, in my brain, count as fantasy because it's set in real world, all that jazz, whatever. But the book is called A Monster Calls. And
Can't remember if I heard of that or
repeatedly
not.
through like various nights, a monster that is like giant, made of like a tree kind of thing, visits a child and it tells stories to this kid that have a lesson and a moral. As you're going through this, kid's mom is also dying of cancer. And near the end of the book, the deal was the monster was going to tell 3 stories, and at the end, the kid has to tell 1. It's his story, and it must be true. And the kind of thing that sets it off, that then I was sobbing through most of the rest of the book, and there's a couple big moments here that are all one moment to me. Sorry, I'm spoiling the book. It's fine. And that's that monster finishes a 3rd story, and the kid's final story, the story that he actually has to kind of tell and go into, is that his mom is actually dying. And he has to accept that fact. And the book kind of starts to come to an end with hospital scene and the kid having to acknowledge and let mom go. And that moment had me publicly crying on an airplane coming back from Portland to Alaska.
Those are the best,
Because I had picked this book up at Powell's, the used bookstore, started reading it in the airport, finished it on the plane, and was crying. One sitting. This is why it's my favorite book. It does kind of count as fantasy, but it hit hard.
Yeah.
And especially if you ever have had anyone in your life who has suffered under the effects of cancer or you've lost them to it, it hits even harder.
And there are quite a few stories that tie into that same sort of thing that we just haven't read that would definitely have gut punch moments.
And to me, one of the biggest things was putting people's lives as stories. I kind of attribute Doctor Who to something that
I almost had a gut Doctor Who
I
episode
don't
on
wanna
this
go.
list.
That one?
I think so.
The switch at the end when David Tennant goes to Matt Smith.
Yeah.
That's a really good moment. That's a really good moment.
Oh, that's with Rose too, right?
Technically, no. Yes and no. There's a moment with Rose, but Rose is technically not companion at the time because weird timey-wimey things.
Yeah.
But there is a like goodbye, which is also her hello, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Which just adds to it, though.
But there was a motif in there, especially with Matt Smith, who was my favorite Doctor, that were all stories.
David Tennant was my favorite.
And that our lives are stories.
You know, I totally dropped off Doctor Who after Matt Smith.
No
People
Capaldi
tell
for
me
you,
I need to
nothing
get
beyond
back to
that.
the rest of that stuff because it's still good, but I just haven't. I read too much now.
I don't watch it as attentively as I would like to.
All right. We
that's my
have
top.
our top lists.
Yes.
They are worthy. Now, what do we fight with
For the top
to
4?
get the top
For the Twitter?
10?
Oh.
Our collective top 10. We'll then put the top 4 from that top 10 on Twitter. But,
I will allow your, number 2.
Spock!
It's definitely not going to be number 2, but I'm not, going to shift it behind your other things in your list. But I'm also going to sit here and go, if you're putting that at number 2 for you, even if it's not number 2 for our overall list, you're not just doing, 8 of yours and 2 of mine.
No, I see 8.
The weird thing is I feel like we had more moments of disagreement when we got to bigger gut punches. We got to our bigger ones than our smaller ones.
Okay, so as I look at my list,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and say Where the Red Fern Grows, that's a sentimental pick for me. That's not science fiction fantasy. So that gets left off of our top 10. I just wanted it out there. Read the friggin' book. Wilson Rawls. Look it up. Change your life. Okay. And then I will fight you for Spock. You gave me Spock. Sirius Black.
It can stay.
Okay. Moreta's death.
It can stay.
I want Egwene. I skipped Egwene. Moreta's below Egwene, but I knew you would be like, but Egwene.
We could put her at 9 or 10.
And the Red Wedding. Come on.
We can put Egwene
I jumped
and
over
then-
Varen because I know
I was
you're
gonna
not
say,
Varen.
Egwene and Red Wedding as 9, 10.
We'll debate that.
I
but
don't know what I've got that will be jumping in the middle
I'm
of this.
crossing
but
out Varen. That's not top 10 based on things you've shared. So I want to fight for Spock, Sirius Black, Egwene, Moreta, and the Red Wedding. And I'm leaving off right now Fred Weasley, Glenn, Ender's Game, and Flowers for Algernon. Of course, Ender's Game will get in
That's
because
one
of
mine,
you.
so I might put it in
woohoo!
there.
Okay.
Well, Ender's Game was my 6. So
But it may still get in. So I see 5 I've put forward. Where do you have? What do we have? What are we talking about? What do we want to fight for?
So A Monster Calls is Patrick Nessis, the author, by the way, is great, is worthy, is kind of fantasy because it often has a fantastical element. The reason it's so gut punchy is technically real world. So for the same reasons for Where the Red Fern Grows, I'm okay with leaving it off.
But it's out there, people. Monster Calls. There you go. This is where your Discord name comes from?
Yes,
Yeah, it was meaningful.
that's exactly where it comes from. It's my variations on it are my name in a lot of things because of this book.
Life-changing.
Because before that, it was Red Vines.
Which was not nearly so meaningful.
But
other than trips to the dentist.
no, more importantly, if you've seen a Harry Potter musical, you understand. But really, I'd jump around and say Jon Snow's death, Hopper's death, Ruark's death. Those 3 are in
Those
there.
are worthy. Okay.
I want the Scouring of the Shire in, but at 10. No. I know it.
Okay, you're going to have to fight for that.
I'm potentially willing
You're
to
saying
let
only
it
one
go.
other then.
Yeah, I'm potentially willing to let it go, but I think it's just, I partially think it gives us street cred just to include it.
So you're saying Ender is the only other one?
No.
Okay.
Maybe.
Then what else? What's your...
No, Ender's Game would actually be my next one.
So if I said no to the Shire and wanted Fred Weasley instead...
I'd say no
What would you
and
put forward?
put Dumbledore instead. So it'd be between 2 Harry Potters.
So now if we're talking about Dumbledore or the Shire, I'm saying put Dumbledore in.
Then we could put Dumbledore. All right. So for an order-ish,
So I've got Spock at the top and you have what?
Jon Snow.
Which one wins?
I think that depends generationally, actually.
Wow, fantasy for the ages. Here we go.
Because I think if you were when they came out... No, I'm not rock, paper, scissoring you on this. If you were alive when it came out, for the older one,
They both come
very
back.
possibly the older one.
But when they died,
We
both
don't-
of them, you didn't know if they'd come back.
Here's where I'm going to throw Jon Snow should get it. Ready? We don't know that Jon Snow comes back in the books.
Doesn't matter.
We don't know.
The media that's out there, he
He
comes
might not.
back.
He might not.
He comes back and drops the friggin' ball.
If that book ever gets published...
Should have been emperor, king, whatever, and Daenerys not able to go nuts. That's what should have happened. That's what George Martin may eventually write.
We'll see what happens if it ever comes out, or at least you will. I won't read it. Maybe I'll read the first couple chapters to see if he comes back.
This is big, though. What's going to be our number 1 on our list? Like, wow, Spock, Jon Snow. Spock, Jon Snow. Wow.
I don't think that really
I almost feel kind of like, wow, really? Spock?
Exactly. That's why I'm like, no.
But it was such a gut punch moment.
No.
Oh. Even with Kirk's overacting.
It was a personal gut punch moment. Because you experienced it personally.
There are Trekkies everywhere who feel my pain.
I think there's more in the camp of Jon Snow.
No, just because friggin' millions watch the show, what are you talking about?
It's more popular. It's hit more people. No. And I say this, it hurts me
but see,
to
I
fight
didn't
against
feel
it.
this with Jon Snow
but
anywhere close.
No, as much as I love Star Trek, I'm sorry, even these movies, kind of hokey.
Not that one.
A little bit.
That was before they got hokey.
No, it's still kind of hokey.
Ricardo Montalban. Come on. Con!
Which is just a meme. It's just a meme. All right, possibility. What's your next one under those?
Sirius Black.
And mine's Hopper.
Oh, Sirius Black totally beats Hopper.
I don't really care, but what if we put the two of them above the ones that we actually put above them?
What?
Because you're fighting for Spock to no end, and I'm sitting here going, I don't care. He does come back, so every argument you're doing with Jon Snow
Spock was
is just as valid.
Punch, man.
It's just formative for you.
Formative? What?
In the sense that still earlier in your life.
I was an adult at this point.
Yes, you've been an adult for a long time.
I think I was an adult. I might not have been an adult. Crap, I might have been a teenager.
So it might have been in your formative years?
I was probably a teenager.
Ah, so it was in your formative years.
Oh, man. Hey, Siri. When did The Wrath of Khan come out? I'm afraid of this answer.
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
The Wrath of Khan?
June 4th, 1982.
Yeah, I was 12.
It was dead center in your formative years. Are you kidding me?
Oh, no.
This is why you are so into this. Because you were 12. I agree with you that it's sad for when you experienced it.
But when I watch it again as an adult, I feel the same way.
Because it calls back to the emotions you felt when you were 12. You were 12.
All right, so you're really pounding away. You want Jon Snow to get this.
I don't even care.
Just that Spock dies.
He should be at like 4 at best.
Oh, no. All right, Jon Snow, number 1. Spock, number 2.
Apparently, I'm yelling. My mother is coming.
My wife has walked in the room going, "What are you doing?"
No, I'm sorry. Go back to Dumbledore dies.
Oh,
yeah,
no!
that's mine.
No!
That one's mine.
You're fired.
We are peaking on all the levels right now.
That is way down the list. Oh my goodness.
That was my pick.
I'm keeping that though. That's rich.
I hope she can be heard.
Oh, I know she can. Okay, so I'm putting down Spock as number 2.
Cool.
I'm pained, but you're putting down 1 for Jon Snow on your notes.
Oh, you want me to put it?
Yeah, we'll accumulate later. I'm not making one good list here. Work with me. Come on, son. 3 and 4. Sirius Black. What was your number 2? Hopper. Sirius Black, then Hopper. Hopper is overrated.
I don't know that I'll... Ouch.
Totally.
I don't know that I'll agree, but I'll give it to you just because I won the last argument. Okay. So I'll be gracious.
I got Egwene's death. You've got...
I believe Ruark was next.
5 and 6.
Because we bumped the Shire out. So yeah, Ruark wasn't my next one.
I'll give you Ruark over mine. I'm going with 6. And you've got 5 for Ruark. That works for me. Ruark, man, that hits. I'm almost embarrassed that's not there. Y'all heard me. Ruark, man. Team Ruark. Okay, 7 and 8. I got Moreta. You have?
The genocide.
Yeah,
Ender's
which
Game.
I had much lower down, but I'll put it in there. So
But
7.
you can yours and then mine.
Yeah. But Enders, yeah. That's a worthy 8. Then I've got the Red Wedding. And you've
And
got
Dumbledore's death.
Dumbledore. Give him the
Dumbledore
9.
over Red Wedding.
Red Wedding is a 10.
It's a little more personal, I think.
Yep, that works. All right, we have a decent top 10 to sum it up again. At number 1,
Jon
we have...
Snow's death.
Number 2, we have Spock's sacrifice. Number 3, Sirius Black's death. Number
4
4,
is Hopper's death.
Number
5 is Ruark's death.
Number 6, Egwene's death. Number
Numbers.
7, Moreta's death.
Number 8 is the genocide in Ender's Game.
Finally, not someone's death. Number 9,
Wait, that's a
well,
lot
it's a
of
whole
people's
race's
death.
death, but not the key person. Ender doesn't die.
True.
Number
9
9
is Dumbledore's death again.
And number 10, everybody's death at the Red Wedding.
Can you tell that gut punches are usually death?
They often are. Falling off the list for me, Fred Weasley, sorry. Glenn, oh Glenn! Ender's Game, which made it in anyway, so whoop whoop. And Charlie from Flowers for Algernon.
Mine that didn't make
Oh,
it.
and of course I kicked off Where the Red Fern Grows.
Things that didn't make it for me: Kelsier's death, Dent's betrayal, and then the 2 that I kicked out: the Shire,
Yeah.
and A Monster Calls.
And I kicked out Varen, her reveal as well. Kelsier's death is a tough one to not make the top 10, I'll admit.
I had put it a little bit lower
It's-
because it didn't hit me personally
Kelsier's
as
number
hard.
11. We'll just go in number 11. But what you'll see on the Twitter poll for number 1, 2, 3, 4,
Jon Snow's death,
Spock's sacrifice, Sirius Black's death, and
Hopper's death.
watch for your chance to vote on which one you think should really be number 1. And of course, in the replies, feel free to share all the series and movies we haven't seen yet and tell us what we need to still watch because we are lacking. And we will love to hear from you.
So, now that that's all been said, how can they hear from us?
Well,
Or
you
rather,
know-
wait, no.
No,
How can we
this
hear
is
from
how
them?
they can hear from
How can
us.
we hear from them?
You know, we have an email, fantasyfortheages@gmail.com, and we have a Discord,
Yes, it's so much more personal.
and I'll put an invite for that in the show notes, but we also are on social media.
We are, as you just heard, there will be a Twitter poll. That means we're on Twitter. You can find us at Fantasy for the Ages. We also have a Facebook somewhere, and we have an Instagram page where you can find most of our drink recipes. You won't really find one for this episode as we move to simpler things.
Yeah, on Instagram, you can kind of click like, heart, you liked our posts, but that's about all the
They can comment.
interaction happens. Yeah, they can comment, but I don't know if we'll see it.
It'll
Twitter is
tell
where
us.
we really notice stuff. So if you want to interact with us, Discord's the best way, Twitter is the second best, and the rest we might notice. Just being honest.
And if you enjoyed this sad, somber note and wish you had been here to tell us that we are very wrong and should have included other things, or that you didn't care about our things, or that things made you very sad, become a patron. You can join us live for as little as $1 a month. With more contribution,
Oh, there's all
you can
sorts
gain
of tiers
lots of
you can
benefits.
participate in. And if you go at a really high tier, you can be a live participant right here with us on
yeah,
the podcast.
become one of the hosts for an episode.
Absolutely. And that would be a hoot.
I'd love it.
It would also help pay off like one of our mics, which is great. All right, that sounds like a good episode. It's been a lot of fun, Zach.
That's all I've got.
We'll talk to you next time.